There comes a time in every atheist's life, and for me it's about once a week nowadays, whereby somebody leaves a comment on your Facebook page that makes you want to open up an Atheism 101 class. Before I begin, I'd like to tell you all something about Travis. Now, Travis is a very professional promoter, and he runs a company called Subculture Promotions. And if you're ever in the Southern Colorado area and you see that Subculture Promotions has something to do with the party, you need to go to that party. You just trust me on this one, okay? Travis was the one who threw the Freedom Festival back in April, where I registered 87 new voters with my voter registration drive, and that was awesome. Everything else I've ever seen from his company has been awesome. Awesome stuff. Now, Travis is a Facebook friend of mine, just like 2,000 other people, and he happened to catch a post that I did, and it was Jamila Bay at the Ascent of Atheism. It was a 45-minute lecture, and although I post every video that I ever do from my Agent of Doubt channel onto Facebook, and hundreds of videos have gone down people's feeds, Travis just happened to pick up on this one. So, I'm going to leave a link to Subculture Promotions in the description box. Also, I'm going to leave this entire comment that he posted, but I'm going to have to go through this line by line in order to explain where he does not understand my atheist position. Travis says, "Hey Mike, you know me and I can't stay off this. I try to give every argument/opinion a chance from an unbiased position. But I have to stop you at about 13 minutes in when she claims facts and truths don't matter and are not equal to logic, reason, and empirical evidence." First, you misspelled empirical and argument. And yeah, we're not going to be grammar Nazis here. Second, not every video that I post to my YouTube channel is an opinion which I hold myself. In this case it is true, but I just want you to be prepared for me to retweet things on Twitter, repost things on Facebook that I don't necessarily agree with myself. Hell, the Innocence of Muslims video that started all those riots in Libya, I posted that to my Facebook page, you know, so I don't agree with that one either. But this one, I can tell you that I don't think you understand what she's trying to say, in that she's talking about a pollster for Romney who is blatantly giving up the goose here when he says that it doesn't matter what people see as fact. What matters is their opinions and how persuasive you can be. You know, if you have a nerdy, drony, nasally, robotic voice trying to explain facts, and then you have a supermodel with opinions and things that go completely contrary to those facts, you're going to persuade a lot of people to not believe in facts, because there are a lot of people who do not have the critical thinking skill set that is required to see that they're being persuaded with all of these techniques, you know, and see past that and see right to the facts. There's a whole bunch of people out there that are like this. It is a very common atheist thing to conflate atheism with having critical thinking skills, but I will grant you that critical thinking skills are not just the domain of atheists. That there are lots of Christians who have these skills and can see when they are being sold a bag of goods. Okay. My problem with atheism doesn't have anything to do with the lack of faith in God. And atheism is a faith, and also requires faith more so than intelligent design or intelligent origin does. I see this argument a lot, Travis. People saying that it takes more faith to not believe in God. And many people conflate faith with confidence. You know, because there's different connotations of faith. There's the magical ability that God gives you to be able to believe in Him without seeing some sort of evidence. You know, people call that faith. Like faith is beamed down to you from God. And then you have a set of eyeballs that are different from your normal eyeballs, so that when you read the Bible, you see, you know, lines in between lines, and you understand it in a way that atheists can never understand. I've seen that as the working definition of faith in many religious people. But to an atheist who comes from the viewpoint of skepticism, faith is believing something without having evidence to support that belief. Okay? And when you're looking for something with empirical evidence, you're looking for something that's verifiable. Okay? Empirical means that you can verify it with a method. You know, counting it, using the scientific method. It means that you can verify. It's completely the opposite of somebody's God telling them, "Thou shalt not test the Lord thy God." Okay? It is, you test everything when you have a question about it. Okay? And you don't commit to believing in anything that you have not seen evidence for. Okay? Now, we'll continue here. And atheism is a faith and also requires faith, yada yada yada. But it directly undermines the logic we need to interpret the world, science, and the evidence we find in all branches of science. Atheism does not contradict any of that. Atheism is simply finding no credible evidence in the existence of a deity. Okay? You look for evidence for the existence of a deity, and you don't find it. Okay? That's all it takes to be an atheist. Okay? Atheism does not mean that you are against logic. It doesn't mean that you're saying something that will prevent someone from interpreting anything unless magic is required, and that magic comes from a deity. Okay? And we're getting into that whole conflation of what does faith mean? You know, is it that magic from God that helps you to see with faith goggles and helps you to understand how the whole world works? Or is it simply believing something without having the evidence to back it up? How can this still be debatable when spontaneous generation leading to evolution was disproven over 175 years ago? Okay. Whole bunch wrong with that statement. First and foremost, not all atheists believe in evolution. Some atheists believe in it wholeheartedly. Some atheists believe that it is the best working model to explain what we see in nature on Earth, but they are open to another working model coming along and explaining it even better. But there are even atheists that don't know enough to believe in evolution because they don't understand it, because they have not studied it yet. Atheism is not the belief in evolution. Atheism is finding no credible evidence in the existence of the gods that are put before you, to understand. Atheism has nothing to do with evolution. The whole origin of species and and survival of the fittest. Atheism has nothing to do with that. Two completely different fields of thought. Okay. Also, to call the Bible a story, you then have to discount all of human history as a story and take none of it literally. Well, you don't have to, but in my case, I don't literally take anything to be fact unless it was empirically verified by evidence after about the year 1600. And yes, much of the world's history I consider to be unreliable. And the Bible is not the history of the world. There are plenty of cultures out there where their history has shit to do with the Bible, okay? And just because I find problems with the historicity of the Bible does not mean that I'm going to find problems with the historicity of other texts. In fact, just off the top of my head about the Bible, let's take the four Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? Let's take the story of when the rock was removed from Jesus' tomb and Jesus wasn't in there, 3 days later. How many angels were present? Compare all those texts. How many people were present? Which people were there? Was the rock already rolled away, or did the angel roll it away? Compare all these things and you'll see that all four of those Gospels were contradicting each other. Other texts, other history texts don't contradict themselves the way the Bible does, with things like, was Jesus born in Nazareth and moved to Bethlehem, or born in Bethlehem and moved to Nazareth, okay? There are huge problems with the Bible contradicting itself. Huge problems, okay? Just because I dismiss the Bible does not mean I have to dismiss everything else as just a story. I'm actually scrutinizing the Bible, finding things wrong with it, and that's why I'm dismissing it. The Bible is a collection of reliable historical documents claiming divine inspiration. To a skeptic who does not believe in magic intervention in the way people write things, I would say that the word reliable and divine intervention, those two don't go together. Those are like oil and water, okay? Which events contained within are verifiable through secular and opposing worldviews. There are some things in the Bible which are verified by things outside the Bible. I don't think that you're using the word secular the way that everybody else might understand it. You're using it to mean worldly, but there are parts of the Bible, like, let's say, Roman officials looking for a certain baby in order to kill him, and the calendar and how it doesn't line up with the death of a certain Roman official before any hunt for the little baby Jesus would have been able to take place. All sorts of little things like that, where there are external accounts which are completely different than the Bible with regards to just the story of Jesus and other things, such as, do you find in the history of Native Americans or in Oriental history a story of the world being flooded? Like entirely flooded? No, you don't. You also don't find stories of people living 900 years old. All sorts of stuff. It also remains reliably unchanged over 1,500 years in over 25,000 manuscripts in 500 different languages. Now, one of those stories that actually tells a different thing about Jesus, that is like an external source, would be the Quran. And Muslims actually claim that their book is just as historically accurate as Christians claim the Bible is. And Jesus doesn't do half the things that he does in the Bible that he does in the Quran. And in the Quran, his role is greatly diminished. He's not really God incarnate. So, which one would you have us believe, Travis? The Quran or the Bible? They both, in my opinion, have everything that the other one has going for it, as far as trying to put forth something that could be believed. So, it's remained reliably unchanged, you say? I'm going to say that the fact, you throw out all these large numbers, 25,000 manuscripts, 500 different languages, 1,500 years, you're forgetting that there are actually 30,000 different denominations of Christianity where each one of them disagrees on what a word means and decides to break off and become, the Southern Orthodox Baptists of Red Bend, And as far as reliably kept intact and it's the same message over and over again, I mean, in the news, we just heard of a manuscript talking about Jesus' wife, just recently in the news. It won't take much for you to Google that and bring it up. There's all sorts of, changes that happen to the Bible because things like the Dead Sea Scrolls get found. Are you aware, Travis, that with all these different languages and manuscripts and all, what you're ignoring is the fact that 2/3 of the planet does not believe anything that is Judeo-Christian? 2/3 of the planet. Okay? They believe something else entirely. 2/3 of the planet. And if you think that not believing in Jesus is what gets you sent to hell, if not having faith in Jesus Christ is what gets you sent to hell or doesn't get you into heaven, that's over 4.5 billion people right now. That's just numbers off the top of my head, but that's a lot bigger number than anything you got here in your comment. That's a really heartless sort of God that you've got there. Let's see. If you have more insight on this, I'd love to hear your opinions, research, and the empirical evidence, again misspelled, that she speaks of that buries God. It is not the position of most atheists that we have to bury your God, that we have to prove that your God does not exist. This is called shifting the burden of proof, okay? People who put forth a positive claim like God exists have the burden on themselves to prove that in order to have other people need to believe what they're saying, okay? We can justifiably dismiss the God of the Bible if we are not presented with evidence that is credible, okay? We don't have to bury your God. You have to bring your God to life you know, you have to present it. So, as much as I could take specific definitions of the properties of the Judeo-Christian God and disprove them with logic or with science, or take certain parts of the Bible and say, look, this is not scientifically accurate, it still is not even my burden to prove that the Judeo-Christian God doesn't exist. It's the burden of those Judeo-Christian believers to prove to other people that he does. And since this is a 101 entry-level class, I do understand. I just want you to know that I understand the frustration in that you want, us to be putting forth evidence that, what we're saying is correct. What we're saying here is that the evidence that we've seen is not credible. The evidence itself does not, warrant belief. Okay. I've been searching for something. I've been searching for years, and there is nothing I have found which proves this. That proves that God doesn't exist. You can't prove a negative. Did you know that, Travis? It's one of those rules of logic that if something is not true, if something does not exist, you can't prove the negative of it. It's okay. So, if I'm ignorant to something, please enlighten me. Have a couple of hours of studio sessions and band rehearsals, but I'm very interested in your opinions. Well, when you get out of those studio sessions and band rehearsals, this video will be waiting for you on your Facebook, and if there's any other questions that you have about how an atheist comes to their perspective, feel free to ask them, and I will answer those questions as well.